Kublai Khan, a name that still sends chills down the spine of history. He was one of the most powerful and feared rulers the world has ever seen. His empire wasn't built only on military strength, but on cold, calculated terror that broke both armies and entire civilizations. Kublai didn't just defeat his enemies, he destroyed their will to resist, erased their hope, and made sure no one would dare rise against him again. How did one man wield such fear across vast continents? What terrifying strategies did he use to turn conquest into total domination? Starvation sieges. Kublai Khan, as a master tactician and ruler, employed starvation sieges to subdue his enemies and assert control over key territories. This brutal tactic involved encircling a city or stronghold, cutting off all supply routes, and effectively depriving the population of food and essential resources. The aim was simple but devastating: to force surrender without engaging in prolonged combat, while leaving a lasting psychological scar on survivors. Such sieges were not unique to Kublai Khan, but under his leadership, they were executed with precision and relentless determination. One notable example is the siege of Xiangyang, a critical Song dynasty fortress during the Mongol campaigns to conquer China. This siege lasted for nearly 5 years, 1267-1273, showcasing Kublai Khan's patience and strategic foresight. Utilizing newly acquired gunpowder weaponry, technology borrowed and refined from earlier Chinese innovations, Kublai's forces deployed trebuchets capable of launching massive projectiles to breach walls and weaken morale. While these weapons created physical destruction, the true devastation came from the enforced famine. Chroniclers noted that the besieged population resorted to consuming anything available, including animals, leather, and even, as rumored, human flesh. Marco Polo, in his account of the Mongol Empire, remarked on the precision and discipline of Kublai's sieges, stating, "He spares no pains to conquer, whether by force or famine." While Polo's accounts often embellish events, the historical consensus supports the effectiveness of starvation as a weapon in Kublai's arsenal. This method demonstrated not only Kublai's military prowess, but also his psychological insight. The agony inflicted by starvation shattered the resolve of defenders, leaving survivors weakened and willing to submit. It was a chilling reminder of the ruthlessness underpinning his rule, a strategy that prioritized conquest over humanity. Mass slaughters. Kublai Khan's military campaigns were marked by episodes of mass slaughter, often used to establish dominance and quash resistance. These acts of calculated violence served as warnings to potential adversaries, reinforcing the Mongol reputation for brutality. While Kublai preferred administrative control and cultural integration, his armies did not shy away from extermination when faced with defiance. The conquest of Dali in 1253 is a grim example. As part of his expansion into what is now Yunnan province, Kublai's forces annihilated large segments of the population to prevent future uprisings. According to Yuan dynasty sources, entire villages were decimated, their inhabitants slaughtered, leaving behind a devastated landscape. This scorched earth approach was not uncommon and often extended to civilians, reinforcing the idea that resistance to Mongol authority was futile. Kublai's policy mirrored earlier Mongol practices under Genghis Khan, where swift, overwhelming violence was used to secure loyalty. The Persian historian Juvayni, writing about the broader Mongol conquests, observed, "They came, they sapped, they burnt, they slew, they plundered, and they departed." Although Juvayni referred to earlier campaigns, the continuity of such practices under Kublai cannot be ignored. Mass slaughters under Kublai Khan were not merely acts of barbarism, but served strategic ends. The systematic elimination of resistant populations ensured long-term stability in conquered regions, sending a chilling message to any who dared challenge Mongol authority. Enslaving the defeated. Kublai Khan's empire building relied not only on brute force, but also on exploiting the human resources of conquered territories. Enslaving the defeated was a hallmark of Mongol conquests, as it ensured both the economic and military expansion of the empire. For Kublai, enslaved individuals became tools to strengthen his rule, build infrastructure, and bolster his army, reflecting the utilitarian nature of Mongol governance. During Kublai's campaigns against the Song dynasty, thousands of captives were taken, many of whom were skilled artisans, engineers, and laborers. These individuals were not only a source of manpower, but also instrumental in advancing Mongol technology and culture. Captives with valuable skills were often spared from harsher fates and integrated into Mongol society, contributing to projects like the Grand Canal extensions or the construction of his capital, Khanbalik-Kaderndey-Bajan. For those less fortunate, enslavement often meant a life of hard labor under brutal conditions. Captured women and children were frequently sold into servitude, their lives dictated by the needs of their Mongol masters. Historical accounts such as those by Persian chronicler Rashid al-Din, highlight how the Mongols utilized slaves to support their logistical and military endeavors, creating a vast system of human subjugation. While Kublai's reliance on slavery was not unique in his era, it underscores the harsh realities of his rule. The enslavement of conquered peoples served as both a practical strategy and a method of control, ensuring their subjugation and reinforcing the empire's dominance. For those under his rule, the cost of defiance was not only death, but a lifetime of servitude. Wiping out bloodlines. One of the most chilling tactics employed by Kublai Khan to consolidate his power and eliminate threats was the systematic eradication of entire bloodlines. This method, often used to extinguish potential claims to leadership or future resistance, reflects the brutal pragmatism of Mongol rule. By wiping out the families of his enemies, Kublai ensured there would be no successors to rally opposition against his authority. The suppression of the Song dynasty exemplifies this ruthless strategy. After the fall of the Song capital in 1276, Kublai's forces captured key members of the royal family, including the young Emperor Gong of Song. While some family members were initially spared and relocated, others were executed to prevent the resurgence of dynastic claims. The tragic fate of the two remaining Song princes, who perished during their attempted escape, symbolizes the erasure of a once powerful ruling house. This tactic extended beyond royalty. Local leaders, military commanders, and their families were frequently targeted during Kublai's campaigns. Historical accounts suggest that the intent was not just to dismantle power structures, but to eradicate the memory of resistance itself. Persian chronicler Juvayni once described Mongol practices as leaving no root or branch of the house of the ruler. Kublai's approach was effective in quelling rebellions and securing loyalty, but it also left scars on the regions he conquered. The deliberate annihilation of entire families created a climate of fear that paralyzed resistance, while the loss of these bloodlines wiped out centuries of leadership and cultural heritage. This chilling practice reinforced the message that to oppose the Khan was to invite annihilation, not just of oneself, but of one's entire legacy. Cultural suppression. Though Kublai Khan is often seen as a ruler who embraced multiculturalism, he also employed cultural suppression to consolidate his power. These measures were strategic, aimed at dismantling local identities and ensuring loyalty to the Mongol Empire. By reshaping cultural and social systems, Kublai weakened the foundations of resistance among conquered peoples. The integration of China into the Yuan dynasty illustrates this approach. Kublai adopted elements of Chinese governance, but marginalized native practices. Confucian scholars, once central to Chinese administration, were sidelined in favor of Mongolian and foreign officials, undermining traditional power structures. Moreover, the hierarchical social system placed the Chinese below Mongols and other ethnic groups, eroding their historical status and influence. Religious suppression was another tool of control. While Kublai initially allied with Tibetan Buddhist leaders, he later imposed policies that curtailed their autonomy. Taoist practices were similarly restricted, as Kublai sought to elevate Buddhism, which aligned more closely with his political goals. Persian historian Rashid al-Din noted how Mongol rulers reshaped local institutions to serve their ends, commenting that they sought to remake the world in their image. Under Kublai, this meant blending selective tolerance with oppressive policies that undermined local traditions and institutions. Kublai's cultural suppression reshaped societies, forcing them to conform to Mongol rule. These policies ensured subjugation but left lasting scars, altering the cultural trajectory of the regions he controlled. Psychological warfare and terror tactics. Kublai Khan, like his predecessors, mastered psychological warfare and terror tactics to weaken his enemies before a single blow was struck. These methods sowed fear, confusion, and hopelessness among adversaries, often forcing them to surrender without extensive combat. Kublai's use of psychological strategies reflected the broader Mongol approach of combining intimidation with strategic brilliance. One chilling example was his calculated use of overwhelming displays of power. Kublai's armies, vast and well-coordinated, were deliberately paraded to intimidate besieged populations. Survivors from earlier conquests were sometimes forced to recount tales of Mongol cruelty, amplifying the fear of annihilation. The Mongols also sent emissaries to offer terms of surrender, emphasizing the destruction that awaited if resistance continued. Kublai's campaigns often employed symbolic terror, such as the desecration of sacred sites or the execution of prominent figures, to undermine morale. Historical accounts suggest that Mongol forces deliberately left ruins in their wake as warnings to others. Persian historian Juvayni noted, "Their mere name was a terror to the world. These tactics were brutally effective, allowing Kublai to conquer vast territories with minimal resistance. By weaponizing fear, Kublai ensured that his enemies were defeated not only on the battlefield, but also in their minds. Kublai Khan's reign remains one of the most terrifying displays of raw power in human history. His brutal tactics, starvation sieges, mass slaughters, enslavement, wiping out bloodlines, cultural erasure, and psychological terror allowed him to build a vast empire, but at an unimaginable human cost. These methods didn't just conquer land, they crushed souls and rewrote the fate of millions. What do you think was the most shocking tactic used by Kublai Khan? Was it the starvation sieges that broke entire cities, the cold-blooded massacres, or the way he erased entire royal bloodlines? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. If this dark chapter of history fascinated you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into history's most ruthless figures and events. Thank you for watching, and remember, understanding the darkest parts of the past helps us see the world more clearly today.